Uryu has had the most anime exclusive editions during the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime. It makes a lot of sense with this story arc centered around the Quincy as the main villains. While in the manga, Uryu was depicted to have joined Yhwach's side, the way that his betrayal was written had left much to be desired. There was so much wasted potential in the manga, but the anime is rectifying all of this, and as of making this video, Uryu has already had 3 anime exclusive fights along with several anime only editions where he's had new lines of dialogue and entirely new scenes centered around his character, like when he's speaking to Ryuken about why the Quincy would be attacking Hueco Mundo, when he's reading through Soken Ishida's journal, and we even have an anime only edition when Hashward had first met Uryu to recruit him into the Sternritter. Uryu's recent battles against Ichigo and Renji, where he reveals the full extent of his vollstandig, have led me to think about a certain theory in relation to Uryu and Mimihagi, and how Uryu may well be the right hand of the Soul King. Be sure to stick around until the very end of this video, as I'll be talking about how Soken Ishida links back to all of this, as well as the significant role that Uryu's shrift ability, the Antithesis, will play in the endgame of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. And all of this is being built up masterfully within the anime, so I'll go over everything to do with Uryu, Mimihagi, the Antithesis, as well as Ryuken and Soken Ishida's role in the story. So without further delay, let's dive into this theory explaining how Uryu may embody the right hand of the Soul King. We got really tired of the same old boring anime shirts, so we decided to launch Getsuga.com with the aim of creating designs inspired by our favorite anime and manga. We came up with designs that look cool and represent all of our favorite stories. Check out the latest Instinct collection, which features some amazing designs like this Frosted Heavens design inspired by Toshiro Hitsugaya, or this Instinct design inspired by Hollow Ichigo, and my personal favorite, which is the Heart design, which was inspired by Ukiura Shifa. Do not miss out, go to Getsuga.com and wear your favorite stories. Core 3 has done so much to expand upon Uryu's moveset. In particular, episode 27 had showcased Uryu's powers undergoing a significant evolution. Now these changes included the appearance of Quincy veins on Uryu's body, both of his irises transforming to this red color, which is similar to the red irises of Yhwach when he activates the Almighty. And then there are these mysterious markings that you see around his eyes and on the back of his hand. I've theorized that these markings have some sort of a connection to Mimihagi, the right hand of the Soul King. Uryu's holy form was first revealed during his battle against Senjumaru, and what's to be noted is that the wings were not properly formed. There were these electrical effects signifying that he had difficulty controlling this transformation, along with the markings around his eyes and those on the back of his hand which resemble Mimihagi's handprint. We know that in order for a Quincy to develop a shrift ability, Yhwach needs to share a part of his soul with that Quincy. And when that Quincy dies, that part of Yhwach's soul is returned to him along with additional power, and this is how Yhwach has sustained his existence for hundreds of years. While claiming that he despises war and conflict, he actually requires war and conflict in order to continue existing. If he were not to share pieces of his soul with others, Yhwach would eventually grow weaker over time and wither away. During the 1000-Year Blood War arc, we had seen Uryu drink the blood of Yhwach. We can assume that this is Yhwach sharing a part of his soul with Uryu. I believe that this is what had triggered Uryu's newfound powers, which he is demonstrating during Core 3. In episode 27, when he was battling against Senjumaru, his vollstandig was in an incomplete or unrefined state. However, a more perfected form is revealed in episode 30 when he battles against Ichigo. Typically, when a Sternritter activates their holy form, they generate a pair of wings along with a halo above their head. Now, for some reason, Uryu does not generate a halo when he activates his vollstandig. Like all of the other Sternritter, Uryu gains the ability to fly thanks to his reishi wings, and his holy form can be strengthened by the use of Sclaverai. In chapter 493, we learn that this technique involves a Quincy gathering reishi from their surroundings in order to further enhance and empower their holy form. Now, Uryu uses Sclaverai in both episode 30 and 33. In episode 30, he had gathered a large amount of reishi with the ability, as seen via the reishi boots that he was wearing and the gauntlets that appeared on both of his forearms. Uryu gains a massive power up in his holy form, so much so that it allows him to fight on equal footing against Ichigo's true Shikai, which he had acquired following his training with the Zero Division. In episode 27, we had seen that Uryu's shrift ability, the Antithesis, was also affected by the release of his holy form, as he was able to turn the tables on Senjumaru by reversing her Bankai, which was only possible thanks to his holy form enhancing his shrift ability. While in his holy form, Uryu is able to generate a large quantity of uniquely shaped holy arrows, with an arrow fired from his holy bow being so powerful that it was able to blow a hole through Ichigo's body as well as Renji's chest. The way that Uryu is able to manipulate all of the holy arrows is very similar to how Byakuya controls the petals of his Senbon Sakura. Uryu can overwhelm his opponent by firing multiple arrows at them, or he can combine all of the arrows together to form one giant holy arrow, which he can rapidly fire towards his opponent. We had seen this in episode 33 when he had fired a giant holy arrow against Renji, and it was so powerful that even with Renji using his true Bankai So'o Zabimaru and using the technique Zazeka, he was only able to deflect the arrow and not dissolve it. When Uryu had fought against Ichigo, he was also able to combine all of his holy arrows into a cage which had trapped Ichigo, and he was able to detonate this cage made up of holy arrows by clasping his hand. Uryu also used an ability called Stardust in episode 30. This involves him combining several holy arrows into one large one which he fires towards Ichigo. Now this technique Stardust was strong enough to clash against Getsuga Jujisho, and it was even able to overpower Ichigo's new technique. And the most recent new ability as of making this video, which Uryu had showcased within his holy form, is called Feder Zwinger. He had used this technique against Renji, where he had combined multiple holy arrows into 5 rods, which had crashed into the ground around Renji, creating a pentagon shape, as Renji was trapped inside and drained of all of his Ryatsu. Uryu did explain that when this technique is used against a Shinigami, they will be powerless to use Shikai or Bankai. Thanks to the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, we've had this all-new transformation for Uryu along with this new moveset, which he didn't have within the manga. This builds upon his shrift ability, the Antithesis, which allows Uryu to select 2 targets and completely reverse their states. During his battle against Hashwald in chapter 679, Uryu was really badly injured, and thanks to the Antithesis, he was able to give all of his injuries to Hashwald, while in exchange he received Hashwald's physically unharmed state. In episode 24, Uryu had used his shrift in order to swap Yhwach with one of his medallions, which he had thrown outside of Kiryu Hikifune's Cage of Life. When Uryu was trapped within Senjumaru's Bankai, he was able to utilize the Antithesis in order to free himself from her ability. Uryu's shrift was also enhanced when Yhwach had awakened the Almighty, as Uryu received a surge of power that overwhelmed him momentarily, with his eyes flashing red and this blue electrical reishi releasing from his body. Now these are the anime exclusive additions made to expand upon Uryu's abilities. It was important to go over this because it emphasizes a lot of the key details about Uryu's Antithesis shrift, which was established within the manga. Within chapter 544, it is revealed that Uryu is the only mixed-blooded Quincy to have survived the effects of Ashvalin, which was casted 9 years ago. In some earlier videos I made, I'd spoken about how Mimihagi and Pernida both represent 2 different factions of the Quincy, due to them both representing the hands of the Soul King, with a hand typically having 5 points, like the 5-pointed Quincy cross, or that the name Quincy originates from the Latin term quint, which means 5, with the left hand of the Soul King Pernida governing over progress, with the right hand of the Soul King Mimihagi governing over stillness. I think that there is a very important connection here between Uryu and Mimihagi, which was hinted at via the markings on the back of Uryu's hand. It's already established within the story that Pernida, who governs over progress, has aligned itself with Yhwach and his army. From this, I've theorized that there are 2 factions of the Quincy. Firstly, there is Yhwach and his Quincy, who have an evolved form of Quincy power, which is very different to the initial Quincy abilities, which were revealed by the character of Uryu. These traditional Quincy abilities were taught to him by Soken Ishida. They're in stark contrast to the ever-evolving shrift abilities that Yhwach bestows upon his followers. If both Mimihagi and Pernida are Quincy, it makes sense for Mimihagi to identify itself with the teachings of Soken Ishida. It is not a coincidence that the blood clot which forms within the heart of an Ashvalan victim is called the Silver of Stillness. In chapter 617, Yhwach had confirmed that he was not able to foresee Mimihagi with the Almighty. Now this is true for both Pernida and Mimihagi. They are immune to the effects of the Almighty, as neither of them appear within Yhwach's visions. During a flashback revealed at the very beginning of episode 24, we had seen that Pernida was capable of sealing away Yhwach's the Almighty ability for at least 1000 years. In chapter 491, when Ichigo comments on the similarity between Kilge's holy form to Uryu's Let Steal ability, Kilge clarifies that Let Steal is a relic of the past which had died out 200 years ago, and it is dubbed as a predecessor to the Quincy holy form. Kilge name drops Soken Ishida here, stating that Soken had rejected the research and evolution of Yhwach and the Sternritter, clarifying that the Quincy holy form is an evolved, superior transformation to the Let Steal power. So from this we can confirm that Soken Ishida opposed progress and he had preferred to stick to the traditional Quincy ways. With Mimihagi being the counterpart to Pernida, it makes sense as to why it had aligned itself with the traditional teachings of the Quincy, and this fits into the theme of stillness. Soken had wanted to stay faithful to the pure ways of the Quincy, and it was this branch of Quincy which Ryuken, Soken and Uryu belonged to that had known about the Silver of Stillness. In chapter 682, Ryuken gives the still silver arrowhead to Uryu, telling him that the arrowhead is made from a silver thrombus which is formed within the heart of a victim of a Ashvalan. I think the reason why Yhwach was unable to foresee the still silver arrowhead is because that Silver of Stillness is derived from Mimihagi, and as we know, Mimihagi is immune to the foresight of the Almighty. There is a theory which is posed by Roronoa20 on the Bleach subreddit, and this theory proposes that similar to Ukitake, Uryu possesses a portion of Mimihagi within his body. This portion appeared to have been activated in episode 27 during his battle against Senjumaru. The manga confirms that there are two sentient body parts of the Soul King. Each of them have their own personalities, names and abilities, and these parts exist within the bodies of two Quincy. Pernida embodies the left arm of the Soul King, while Gerard embodies the heart of the Soul King. It could be theorized that these sentient body parts of the Soul King can only exist properly within a body of a Quincy, but for this to be possible, Mimihagi needs to be able to divide itself into small pieces and to be able to distribute itself amongst its believers. Now there must be a reason as to why Ukitake and the other members of Rukongai had used to visit the shrine of Mimihagi. It can be logically deduced that Mimihagi will have definitely performed more than one miracle for the Rukongai residents, which is why the rumors of Mimihagi's miraculous power had spread amongst its believers. It makes sense for a body part of the Soul King to be able to distribute portions of itself with others, similar to how the Fullbringer Ginjo was able to redistribute the powers that he had stolen from Ichigo to the other members of Execution. Linking this together, it makes sense that Mimihagi is able to divide itself into further pieces and implant its power into those that it chooses. Within the manga, it's confirmed that Ukitake had a fragment of Mimihagi within him, but I believe that the anime is also hinting at Uryu possessing a fragment of Mimihagi within his body too. Think about when Uryu had activated his shrift ability, the Antithesis, in order to escape from Senjumaru's Bankai. We had seen both of his eyes glowing red in color. I've mentioned how Pernida has aligned itself with Yhwach and how Mimihagi has aligned itself with the Ishida family. I believe that this links back perfectly with Yhwach's shrift ability, the Almighty, which is a power rooted in Yhwach affecting the future, where he selects the future that he wants and he actualizes it in the present. Uryu, contrastingly, has the shrift ability, the Antithesis, which I believe is rooted in stillness. Unlike Yhwach's ability where he alters the future, Uryu needs to allow the events to unfold within the present so that he can then swap out the unfavorable situation for a favorable one. The Almighty's ability to see in the future grants its user multiple pupils, as this is a visual symbol for its all-encompassing vision, while contrastingly, Uryu's ability, the Antithesis, does not affect the pupils pupils, only relying on a singular pair, thus granting Uryu the ability to observe what is currently happening in the present, so that the antithesis can take effect in the present moment. The entirety of this theory relies upon this idea that Uryu has fragments of Mimihagi within his body, while contrastingly Yhwach has fragments of Pernida within his body. 1,000 years ago, Pernida was absorbed into Yhwach's body when Ichibei had utilized it in order to seal the shrift ability to Almighty. Yhwach was negatively impacted by Pernida assimilating with him, and over the course of 1,000 years, Pernida at some point had started to identify itself as a Quincy, and at the same time releasing the seal which it had placed upon Yhwach's shrift ability. If we can build upon this inverse relationship between Pernida and Mimihagi, we can theorize that Uryu had Mimihagi placed within his body before Ashvalan was casted, and it was the presence of Mimihagi which had protected Uryu from Ashvalan, which was casted 9 years ago. Now, the reason why Uryu is the antithesis to Yhwach is linked directly to the actions of Soken Ishida. In chapter 674, it is revealed by Ryuken that Soken Ishida was exiled from Yhwach and his Quincy. Ryuken comments on how the decades-old Gate of the Sun pass which they had used was still functional today. Ishida tells Ryuken that he should be thanking his father for stealing one before he was sent into exile. Now, Ryuken says that for the first time in his life, he is thankful for his no-good father's thieving ways. Now, this suggests that Soken Ishida would have stolen more than one thing. Maybe he had stolen a fragment of Mimihagi and placed this within Uryu. This would perfectly explain why Uryu is the only mixed-blooded Quincy who has survived Ashvalan. Similar to how Mimihagi was able to stop the progress of Ukitake's lung disease without curing it, Mimihagi was able to stop the formation of that still silver clot within Uryu's heart when Ashvalan was casted. This theory relies on Soken Ishida having done a lot of big brain planning in anticipation for the return of Yhwach one day. If Soken Ishida was exiled from Yhwach's invisible empire hiding within the shadows of the Serete, then he would have been aware of the time span left until Yhwach returns. In anticipation of this, he would have taken certain measures in order to protect his family, with Soken Ishida knowing of the existence of Masaki, knowing that she ended up marrying Isshin and having a son with him. Soken may have theorized that Ichigo would one day activate his Shinigami powers, and this does give newfound meaning to what he had tried to instill within Uryu, that the Shinigami and Quincy need to learn to cooperate with each other. Soken Ishida may have known about the special nature of Ichigo, how Yhwach would have planned to use Ichigo in order to break the seal of the Soul King and kill him once and for all, and for this reason he would have wanted Uryu to work together with Ichigo in order to defeat Yhwach. It's also revealed at the end of the manga that Soken Ishida had told Ryuken about a weapon which is to be used against Yhwach. Soken Ishida told him that if the silver which appears within the heart of an Ashvalan victim is mixed with the blood of the caster of Ashvalan, then it will interfere with that user's abilities. So for a brief moment, it will eliminate all of their power. The still silver arrowhead, which was used at the very end of the series by Uryu, was created from the blood clot formed within the heart of Uryu's mother, Kanai Katagiri. Soken Ishida knew that this silver of stillness would be important in the future, as he had hinted the purpose of it to Ryuken. Mimihagi's power, which is dormant within the silver of stillness, was activated within Yhwach's body in order to counter his shrift, the Almighty. Maybe the reason why Ryuken had handed the arrowhead to Uryu is because he is the only one who would be able to fire it at Yhwach, because Uryu has a fragment of Mimihagi within his body, thus allowing him to form a unique connection with the still silver arrowhead, which had allowed the arrowhead to escape the vision of Yhwach's the Almighty, thanks to the influence of Mimihagi. From Ukitake's sacrifice, we had learned that Mimihagi protects those who offer it everything of themselves besides their eyes. So it's possible that Mimihagi can divide itself amongst others, with one portion of Mimihagi within Ukitake, who had taken over every organ within Ukitake's body except for his eyes, and the second part of Mimihagi, which is its eyes, was given to Uryu. Maybe Soken Ishida had stolen the eyes of Mimihagi from Yhwach and had planted them within Uryu, thus explaining why his eyes had turned red in color, and how the Antithesis is a shrift ability which has originated from Mimihagi, with the Antithesis being tied to stillness and the present, being a perfect counter to Yhwach's shrift the Almighty, which is tied to progress and evolution. Once again, all of these Quincy theories are linking back to Pernida and Mimihagi, and I honestly really love this theory proposed by Roronoa20 over on the Bleach subreddit, as it does a great job of linking everything together, from the body parts of the Soul King to the role of Soken Ishida and Ryuken, and how Uryu was able to survive Ashvalin and why he is the perfect foil to Yhwach. Let me know all of your thoughts about this very unique theory of Uryu possessing the right hand of the Soul King Mimihagi thanks to Soken Ishida implanting the eyes of Mimihagi within Uryu's body. It honestly does have an excellent duality here, with Uryu's eyes of stillness colored in red against Yhwach's eyes which have multiple irises which govern over progress and the future. The Antithesis versus the Almighty, Pernida versus Mimihagi, Let's Steal versus vollstandig, the traditional ways of the Quincy versus Yhwach's shrift empowered Quincy, and how all of this links back perfectly to the polarizing relationship between Uryu and Yhwach, and how the anime is definitely cooking something very important with Uryu's character, with his betrayal being done so convincingly. I do wonder how it's all going to link back to the events of the manga. It's hard for me to think that Uryu's character is redeemable, especially after he almost killed Ichigo, and it seems like he has actually killed Renji in the latest episode. We are going to be getting way more anime exclusive scenes as Core 3 wraps up, with my estimates being that Core 4 will consist of 75% worth of anime original content, so there is so much to look forward to. But for the time being, let me know all of your thoughts about this incredible theory about Uryu's role in the story and his link to Mimihagi. I'd love to know all of your thoughts, whether if you agree or disagree with this theory, or if there is anything that I've forgotten to mention within this video which can be expanded upon, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach theory video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.